Curious to know how a team in the Premier League will play this season? I can show you three teams, three different formations in 3 steps. Hello, I'm Wayne, and welcome to Goals by the Numbers. Let's just get straight into it. So, we are in July. Preseason has started. Fans are full of hope. Teams are flying all across the globe now that the Club World Cup is finished. Congratulations, Chelsea. And fans are filled with nothing but optimism for the success that we hope our individual teams will have. So, as a Man United fan, I watched Manchester United play Leeds, two Premier League teams, historic rivals. I have to say, it was weird seeing Manchester United playing white, playing against Leeds, especially when this new kit, which they clearly are trying to push, looks like the Spurs one from the 1991-92 season, or the season before. But I digress. Watching the match, I had to keep in context that it was the first game after a few months. So, players are getting up to speed, getting movement in the legs, testing out different things. New teammate, because United have only managed to sign one player so far, even though another one is close to joining, being Brian Mbeumo, or Mbeumo. Never really sure about the name. So, watching the game play out, you look at the system and the different tactics each team employ, and I had a thought. I'm looking at a match, and I can see certain things playing out. But as fans, we are all watching the same thing, and we're all seeing different things take place. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be good to have a video where we look at a team, look at their shape when they do not have the ball and they're being attacked, and how they progress from winning the ball back, moving into the middle third of the pitch, and then towards their attacking intent. So today we'll discuss Manchester United, because again I'm a fan, for all my sins. Liverpool, because as the champions and making the signs that they're making, they are definitely worth a look at. And Manchester City, who I think will be completely different than we expect them to be from previous seasons. So, our first match, Manchester United. Ruben Amorim employs a 3-4-3 system or a 3-4-2-1, depending on how you want to describe it. And it works on having high line, retaining possession, being reasonably direct. Pep Guardiola, famed for tiki-taka when he was at Barcelona, is all about retaining possession, high pressing, and extremely high line. And Arne Slot's Liverpool. So last season, after taking over from Jurgen Klopp from a few seasons, he retained a few solid elements from Klopp. So I think going into this season, we're really going to see what an Arne Slot team looks like. Here we have a standard formation where Manchester United play a 3-4-3. Now, the first thing I should to note is you see the image of the ball and an arrow which shows that the direction of travel is the team is being attacked. Now, to try and make this as simple and as clear as possible, you will notice that there are two number 6s and two number 10s. Now, the reason I've done this is to denote the fact that we're looking at this from a system perspective, not players who actually play in those positions. So, with that in mind, the two number 10s. Sitting in a 3-4-3 formation, you can see that both of the number 10 positions have a shaded box around them. Now, as they are technically players who play central roles, when defending, they will have to essentially defend that box, because if the ball moves wide, they are going to give the wingback, the number 3 and the number 2, extra support to ensure that they don't get overloaded or doubled up on. Because a common theme or a common method, or I guess a usual attack or usual method of attack when a team has wingbacks, is to get your winger and your fullback to double up on them to essentially be able to get around it, because it's 2 versus 1. And that was stage 1. So stage 2 in the Amorim system. Once possession has been acquired and a team start to move forward, one thing that Ruben Amorim tries to do with his team is have the middle of the 3 centre-backs push forward a little and retain possession or start to build up play with the 2 number 6s. Now, in effect, you then end up having two centre backs and three players acting as quote unquote central midfielders. So that gives the formation a different look. Now, the number one centre back doesn't go too far forward, but far enough that they aren't in line with their colleagues who play in the same position. You'll also note now that the fullbacks have taken a much more advanced position as they are trying to provide width on each flank. And you'll notice that in this formation, in a defensive capacity, they are the only players on the flank. And now in an attacking capacity, they are still the only players on the flank. The two number 10s also start to go further forward, and they start to narrow as they essentially are trying to line up behind the striker to provide assists, score goals, or in some scenarios, be involved in intricate play to create a shot or assist. And this is where the shot creating actions and goal creating actions become a bit more important. So on from stage 2. Now stage 3. Stage 3 is a scenario where the team essentially gets the ball in the box and a player is likely to have a chance to shoot. Now, of course, a player can shoot from anywhere on the pitch, but if we assume that a shot is taken from inside the box, then this image makes more sense. Now, the two fullbacks, number 3 and wingbacks, number 3 and number 2, they are as far up the pitch to be almost or in line with the opposition's penalty area. From this position, their task is to provide width and to provide crosses into the box. That's what the squiggly line is with the ball at the end. You notice now that the number 9, the main striker, is in the middle of the box, just outside the 6-yard area. Behind him, you have the two number 10s who are on the edge of the box and essentially can do different things. One can go near post, one can go far post, but essentially they are backing up the number 9. Now, as we go back towards the more defensive players, you'll notice the two number 6s and the thin yellow bar/strip in front of them. Now, where that bar/strip is, that highlights where a loose ball can be cleared, or a ball can be cleared by the defending team. And that is the area that the two number 6s are likely to encounter this ball and have a chance to take a shot from long range. This also shows where the defending team could potentially play a ball to one of their players who'll be in and around this area and then looking to start a counter-attack. In addition to this, you'll also notice of the three defenders, the three centre-backs, number 5 and number 6 have circles around them. So in a system with wingbacks, in the modern age, a centre-back who plays either side, so essentially one of the wide centre-backs, their role in this scenario, where the wingback is pushed so far forward, is they are now a centre-back and effectively a fullback. So if the team has been attacked, wins the ball, and as we mentioned before, a really effective way of attacking a team using wingbacks is to get the ball and double up on their wingback. So the number 6 and number 5 effectively, as the ball comes towards them, if it goes wide, they have to go out there, essentially where the wingback was, and try and defend the ball. And in theory, what should happen is the other two centre backs should shift across and form a pairing of two. And this is how Manchester United are now playing. And this is why sometimes we ask the question, when we think of one player that's been bought, being Matheus Cunha, currently, with Mbeumo due to sign soon, surely more players have to be brought in who are used to playing in such a system. But will that happen? Time will tell. Having had looked at Manchester United, we can see that their formation allows for wingbacks because they are the only players available to provide width as a natural part of their role. When we look at our next team, that being Liverpool, looking at the stats from how they played last season, they commonly started in a 4-2-3-1, so a different formation, fundamentally. But where does their width come from? Now, in a previous episode, we did mention that one of the signings, Jeremy Frimpong, was more of a runner as opposed to a crosser of the ball as Trent Alexander-Arnold was. So if we were to look at their formation, Liverpool, stage one. Looking at Liverpool and how they played last season, they commonly lined up in a 4-2-3-1. Very common, very standard formation to be played in the Premier League and a lot of leagues in Europe. I think by most of us looking at the formation, we kind of understand what it's supposed to do. But I have made a few assumptions in the lineup to try and illustrate a few points. So we have a back four. We have two players being Gravenberch and McAllister, and they're essentially the protection of the back four. And they'll also keep the ball moving, similar to the two number sixes for Manchester United. Now, in their defensive capacity, the players are all lined up in this kind of shape, essentially trying to defend their goal. Now, if we move to stage two, where Liverpool win the ball, looking at some of the matches, watching Liverpool last season, and looking at some highlights from other matches where Arne Slot has managed teams. Also consider the fact that Mo Salah is he's getting older. Healthy player. Last season put up really good numbers, so it's not a decline scenario. But you also notice, based on my opinion, the wingbacks or the fullbacks are now taking up aggressive positions. So instead of having the three defenders as Manchester United did, or one of the defenders joining the midfield to effectively become three central midfielders, we now have a scenario where the two wide players in the three of the 4-2-3-1, they've tucked in a little bit to make space for the fullbacks to get further forward. Now we know Frimpong has more progressive carries as opposed to Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has more progressive passes and crosses more. So in this scenario, Frimpong could effectively become the winger/wingback, and he would just run down that flank and look to cause problems by crossing the ball and so on and so forth. Robertson, for all the years I've seen him at Liverpool, good player, very good signing, loves crossing the ball. So even though he is not, say, as much of a runner as Frimpong, he will still be very effective. So in this scenario, you can see Wirtz, who is coming on a massive amount of money, tucks in because he and Szoboszlai will be creators. Now in this system, I mean, I've laid out 11 players. I don't know if this is Slot's number one team. I don't know if a Liverpool fan would agree with this lineup, but it's a lineup all the same. So when we move into the next phase and the last phase, so stage three for Liverpool attacking, you'll notice something slightly different from what Manchester United had. You will still notice that most of the players are in the central zones of the pitch. Now the reason for this is it allows you more interplay, more one-touch football, and more complex manoeuvres to work the ball into the box. But what you'll also notice is that, well, from my opinion, what Liverpool will look to do is, if Diaz is playing as the main striker, he'll be the one who's at the forefront of the attack. But you'll also notice that Salah will also end up in the box because he also has Frimpong doing a lot of the running outside of him and providing the crosses, as will Robertson. Wirtz and Szoboszlai, similar to the Man United formation, become effectively the two number 10s. So they're looking to get in the box, pick up any loose balls, create, closer to the goal, and just get involved. Now again, we also have that thin yellow bar/strip. Now this is where the effectively two number 6s for Liverpool, being Gravenberch and McAllister, this is where they'll look to win balls, stop counter attacks, and potentially have a shot from range. Now, whereas Manchester United had three defenders, three centre-backs, Liverpool have two. So they have a bigger space to defend, which is why instead of the circles, you've got these two rectangles. Now, if the defence win the ball and play the ball high towards Liverpool and wide, one of these centre backs is going to have to go out there to deal with that problem, because you assume that Liverpool will be attacking because they want to win the game as quick as possible, meaning that only one centre back is left to defend the goal, as opposed to the two that Manchester United would have in theory. So that was Liverpool. I think it'd be very interesting to see how they are in year 2 post Klopp or year 2 of Slot. And I think one of the advantages for them is definitely going to be how to get Mohamed Salah closer to the goal so that they can effectively conserve his strength so he could just be impactful at the end of the field they want him to be in. So, last but not least, that takes us on to our final team, that being Manchester City. Manchester City, by their own standards, did have a poor season last season, and will be determined to make amends and win silverware. So, if we look at their team, last but not least, Manchester City. So, in a similar fashion to what we walked through with Liverpool and Manchester United, stage 1 involves Manchester City being attacked, similar icon, but what I've done in this scenario is Pep being Pep and trying to be as fluid as possible. I've only put in some players that I think are key to certain scenarios that I think will occur. Last season in the Premier League, Manchester City played 4-2-3-1 on a number of occasions. But in this scenario, I actually think it will look like a 4-3-3, similar to what Pep used when he first came for it Barcelona. And I think as the play progresses, I think we will see similar things what we saw in that scenario. So, for all of those who are old enough, one of the strengths of Lionel Messi was that he could cut in from the right wing, score goals, and get assists. What also helped Lionel Messi was having a fullback, being Dani Alves, go up and down that right-hand flank. I expect that to be a similar thing to what we will see with Frimpong at Liverpool. But I also think a similar thing is going to happen here for Manchester City. So, key to this would be Aït-Nouri, who last season played for Wolves in a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, similar to what Ruben Amorim played. And Aït-Nouri's job was literally to be the wing-back and guess what? Go up and down that flank. At this point, if you hadn't figured it out, there is a theme. The fullbacks or wingbacks are going to provide the width. That's going to be their job and their goals in these different formations. But not to get too far off the point. So I've highlighted Aït-Nouri, Reijnders, Rodri, Silva, and Foden, and up front Haaland, because it's usually going to be Haaland. So when Manchester City moved to stage 2, once they've acquired the ball and they're moving up the pitch, what I'd expect to see is the fullbacks, whoever the right back is, and Aït-Nouri, to get wide and start to move forward. The player who's number 11, that could be any multitude of players, I expect him to start to tuck in. Haaland will start to make his way towards the box. Foden and Silva will tuck in as they look to become effectively the two number 10s. Whereas Rodri and Reijnders will be charged with keeping the flow of the ball moving and creating from deeper. So we all know Rodri as a really graceful defensive midfielder or deep line playmaker. Reijnders is not that. Reijnders, when I've seen him play at AC Milan, he's more like a playmaker. Not only Kevin De Bruyne kind of mold with a repertoire of long range passes, but it's more pass and move, run with the ball a short distance and lay off a pass, and also score goals. So when Manchester City moved to their third stage, what you'll notice is they have just a lot of players forward, as Barcelona did back in the day. Now in this scenario, what will happen is, if the defending team win the ball, Manchester City will have so many players around, the 5 seconds they used to spend to win the ball back before making a professional foul will come into play very quickly. So in a similar fashion to Manchester United and Liverpool, the fullbacks for Manchester City will provide the crosses and the width. Haaland will be the main attacking threat in the box. Silva and Foden will move into those effective effectively those two number 10 positions. Also, the number 11, he's also in a similar position. So we have 5 players trying to get into the box. Again, we have that thin yellow bar slash strip. But in the Manchester City case, what I've highlighted is the fact that Reijnders, being the player he is, may also try and join this attack, or at least be just behind them. Now, Rodri's role in this is quite interesting. He can, if Reijnders is close to him, he may take a step back to effectively make Manchester City's backline 3 players in what we used to call, or I think we still do call, the halfback. This is where he drops in. The 2 centre backs can move slightly wider as they do in the Ruben, as they will look in the 3-4-2-1 Ruben Amorim employs, and just create more passing angles. So if Reijnders joins the attack, the yellow bar strip is only protected by Rodri. And in the same fashion to Liverpool having 2 at the back, you've got Manchester City's number 5 and number 6. Again, it could be so many different players. Guardiola, Ake, Stones, that's already 3. So I've gone with just numbers. Now they have the wider spaces to defend, but you also have one key difference for Manchester City. The goalkeeper. We previously did a video with discussing shot stoppers and sweeper keepers. And we have concluded that in the last few seasons, having a hybrid of the 2 or a sweeper keeper tends to result in winning the league. Now, Edison is adept he is a very adept sweeper keeper. So as Manchester City push more players forward, I would expect him to come out of the box and be relatively close to help if needed. So with Rodri there, the 2 centre backs and the goalkeeper, you still have 4 players who can maintain possession. So I guess the question will be for Manchester City, if Pep goes, I guess, quote unquote, old school, will this be their final form when they become the northern-based Barcelona? I guess we'll have to keep our eyes peeled and find out. Also, on a side note, what is interesting about Reijnders, who has joined Manchester City, will play or will start in a position that looks similar to what Kevin De Bruyne did for the last few seasons. He excels at a few key interesting stats. Those being amount of shots he has per 90, non-penalty expected goals, non-penalty expected XG, and progressive carries. Now, you would think 1 in, 1 out, but Reijnders and Kevin De Bruyne are not the same. Of course, there's crossovers and skill sets, but Reijnders is more similar to, statistically speaking, he's more similar to Bernardo Silva or even Gundogan. Odegaard comes to mind. So he's more of a run, pass, make a short range pass, as opposed to have the ball look up and make a 30-40 yard pass that bends at an angle that people just can't even comprehend. So Reijnders would be really interesting to watch as the season progresses. Assuming he settles well, his output should be positive. And I think when you have a team in the club which is relatively stable, bringing in a player from a foreign league, in this case, bringing in a player from AC Milan and Serie A, shouldn't cause too much of an impact to his output after the first few months of the season. So what have we concluded from all of the looking at different systems of formations that these teams play? Fullbacks and wingbacks this coming season are going to be very, very interesting to see how they do their thing. And I would expect to see teams such as Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal have most of their players in the middle of the pitch and try and go for intricate play to work their way towards the goal. Now, I would expect 2 of these teams to do it really, really well. And at Manchester United, I mean, Ruben Amorim's got his work really cut out for him. As we can see, and I guess to summarise it really quickly, 3 teams, all who have players who are wide, fullbacks or wingbacks, those players will be charged with providing the width. The aim will be to congest the middle to make counter-attacks or transitions harder, Loads of short range passing and into play. Bruno Fernandes, you are going to have to pass the ball a shorter distance. I do love a Hollywood pass, but I don't know how it's going to work in this kind of in these kind of systems. And I think in our next video, what might be interesting is to take a look at some of the signings that City and Liverpool has made. I think Reijnders is going to be a particularly interesting player to watch next season. Anyway, enjoy your day, enjoy the video. Any comments in the video? Love the feedback, and I'll catch you in the next one.